I figured I'd make a video on learning how to ride this, the electric unicycle. So I'm gonna actually go to a park right now to make it a little bit easier. If you have a park nearby with that rubber flooring, that'll be the best place to practice, because if you fall or if you drop your wheel, there's a lot less chance that your wheel is gonna get damaged, a lot less chance that you're gonna get broken bones and things like that. And if you're tuning in after the live, after this is fully uploaded and everything, you can go ahead and fast forward through to the park. But for now, yeah, I'm gonna, if you want all the tips and whatever, you can go ahead and watch the entire video. So first thing I would recommend, it's not really required if you're learning on a slow wheel or starter wheel. But if you're learning on a wheel, like now all the wheels are pretty powerful, you'll want to get some gear. Trust me, gear is pretty important. So I took a fall a while back, 15 miles an hour, and that fall was enough to break my right clavicle. So even if you're planning on going slow, gear is pretty important. I've been riding for like thousands and thousands of miles, probably more than 20,000 miles now. And that one fall happened going at a slow speed where I thought the risk of getting hurt would be very low. Mainly it was because I was being dumb and doing like a slalom through cones, and I don't usually do that type of riding. So yeah, but always be prepared. I think the most important gear is, everyone usually will say helmet and wrist guards. I don't really have wrist guards. But if you aren't used to riding and you try and catch your fall with your hands or your wrists, then there's a good chance you can break your wrists and things like that. So those are good types of gear to have. Again, usually I go pretty fast, so when I fall, it's more like I'm sliding forward, and the risk of me kind of trying to catch my fall with my hands is a lot lower. So it really depends, and it's really up to you how much you want to protect yourself. But keep in mind that one fall where I broke my clavicle, going in for x-rays and everything, having the doctor check, going to the ER, that cost more than all my gear combined. So yeah, invest in good gear. I don't know what other people recommend. I got this lazy rolling jacket with the higher rated pads in it, and yeah, I wasn't wearing it when I did that fall because I was doing a slow 15 mile an hour range test, and normally I'll go over 30 miles an hour on this wheel like all the time. And then also I got these Elite dual axis knee pads. So I don't know if you were able to see them, but a lot of people recommend those knee pads. They're really nice, they're super comfortable. They don't really hinder the movement on my legs or anything, so they're really good. And yeah, and then I got this helmet. I haven't really taken a hit to my head yet, as far as I know, at least not with the helmet on, so I don't know how well the helmet will protect. Usually when you fall, the chance of hitting your head is a lot lower, but your head is the most important part. If you do damage your brain, then yeah, you don't want that. So here's one recommendation for learning. If your park has like these little twisty bar thingies, you can use those to grab hold and then use that to go around. Or you can just use like a regular pole, preferably something that's thinner in diameter, like a like one of those sign poles. Those help a lot, but again, like this kind of rubber flooring is really good, so if you were to fall down, then your wheel and you will be less likely to be hurt. So let me show you also another good thing. If you have like fencing like this, you can use that to help kind of go around the fence. But I don't really like fencing, because if you fall, your wheel might go out of control and like smack into the fence and stuff like that, or other things. So you want to find a park where it's kind of empty, not many people around, so if you fall, it's not a big deal. And the main thing you want to learn first is being able to hold your wheel up with one leg. So you want to like kind of get your foot on with one leg, with one leg like this, and then you can kind of just pedal it kind of like a skateboard. All right, So you can kind of like push it like this and kind of just learn to balance with one foot or one leg like this. All right, I've actually only practiced with my left leg. So if I do my right leg, it's almost like a new rider. It's really hard for me to do this. So this kind of practice is kind of one of the first steps. So I've only taught myself to do my left leg in all my thousands of miles of riding. So yeah, you can pick one leg so you can learn it faster, or if you want, you can switch back and forth and try and learn yourself to be ambidextrous or whatever. All right, so next thing, I'm going to try and zoom out and show you how you can use like one of these poles. So once you kind of get the hang of like holding it with one foot, which is kind of the main thing, usually people will kind of try and start by like doing this. You can also kind of learn by doing that. If you can kind of stand on it for a little bit, then that's kind of good and you're getting the hang of it. So let me actually show you here. I don't know if I can put my camera in a good spot to show this. Let's see. So let me see, probably where's that thing? I can't even see. Okay, I can see it. There it is. All right, so now you can practice by using the pole. Again, you don't need one that moves around. If you just have like a thinner pole that you can kind of wrap your hand around, that will help. So let's say you're learning, you'll be like hopping like this, and then kind of like grab on the pole with one hand. You can learn by like kind of doing this. So this kind of helps you learn. And then you can also like learn to like slow down, go backward. So that kind of will, using the pole like that will kind of help you learn to control it, to go forwards and backwards. So when you're holding on the pole, because most people don't realize that when you ride on this thing, it's not so much leaning forward. Like leaning forward isn't what gets you to go forward. It's the weight on the balls of your feet. So when you're learning to ride and move forward, if you're standing on flat ground, you want it to where, so if you're standing on flat ground, you want it to be where, like, if you're tipping forward, you should be like falling over. That's the kind of motion that you want on this thing. Like you can lean forward like a bow and you won't fall forward, and that kind of motion won't get the wheel to go forward. So you want to actually be like you're falling over. That's how you get the wheel to move. So again, first thing to try and learn on is one of these, like a pole like this. Again, you don't have to use like a spinning pole. You can use like a regular, this one's not round, so I can't really use that. But let me show you here. So you can use like a traffic sign pole. And those will kind of help. The only problem is these kinds of little traffic sign poles, they're usually not on like a road that you can go around. So this one is kind of a good example. You can kind of grab on here and then you can use that to kind of help you like just go in, practice going in a circle like this. Okay, so stuff like that. So those kind of poles are pretty useful. And then if you have one, most people won't, but if you have like a wheelchair, you can put like a weight in the wheelchair just so it doesn't tip backwards, or have someone sitting in there, and you can use the wheelchair to learn to go forward and steer and things like that. So having a wheelchair that you can use to practice steering, going forwards, going backwards, slowing down, those help a lot. The other thing I use, which, okay, let me see, I think nobody's at it. The other thing you can kind of use is one of these. You can use like, some people are here, but you can use like one of these thingies and use that to kind of guide yourself forward and backwards. So that's another thing to practice on, right? Again, then what you want to practice after you get like going forward and backwards a little bit, slowing down, you want to practice on like short curves like this. So just going up and down like little curves. Okay, slowly getting used to the sudden impact drops, bending your knees, things like that. So these kinds of things help you. So on these, usually on these rubber areas, you can kind of practice switching between surfaces. And those different surface, like this one, it kind of sticks up a little bit. So these kind of help you get used to the random changes and impacts. Once you get really good at that, you can actually start like trying to ride through grass. You don't want to go too fast because there's usually like sudden potholes in grass. And if you don't notice the pothole, you're like gonna end up like falling really at a high speed. So learning on grass is kind of like almost like a final level of learning. It's actually easier to go fast on like rough terrain. It's easier to go at higher speeds on rough terrain, but you have to train your knees to kind of just bounce as you go. So like that, if you're not used to it and you try and do this, you're definitely going to fall on your face. So if you learn on grass, you want to make sure to go actually pretty slow at first, just kind of getting your body used to absorbing the impact, and you can slowly work your way up and go faster. And you don't want to start out going too fast. And usually the first thing, as you get comfortable going forward, you'll be like, oh, okay, this isn't bad. And then you'll start trying to turn, but your body's not used to leaning into the turns. So it's very important that you kind of take the time to learn and do it slowly. So you don't want to just like start taking off going fast. And the same thing applies to new wheels. If you get a different wheel or a new wheel, you don't want to treat it like your original old wheel and go fast like right away, because there's a good chance that you're not going to be able to steer it the same way. You're not going to be used to it, and then you're going to end up falling and getting hurt. So you want to take each wheel kind of slow and just take it and learn it as you go. The other big thing to keep in mind is you won't learn how to ride right away. It does take time. If you're constantly jumping on it and trying, most people will be able to like get up and start riding in a straight line, doing like some slight turns in a couple hours or so, maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 hours of constantly trying to get on and go. Then you want to make sure when you're learning to watch the road, because there are all these different kind of road imperfections, and you can actually fall and get pretty hurt if you're not paying attention. So there's a snake right there. There's a snake right there. So it's coiling up, getting ready to strike. So I better not get too close. It's like showing me like back off, I'm about to strike. So in case anyone wants to see us, where to go. There we go. I don't want to get too close, and the zooming sucks in this live view mode. But anyways, so the snake's just sitting there. So let's keep going. Again, you want to watch your surroundings. Make sure nothing's going to run out in front of you, fall in front of you. Nobody's like playing basketball or anything that their ball might get lost and they'll chase after you like into the street, and you might run over the ball or run into the people. So yeah. And then when you go and do like driving in streets, that's another thing. You want to be very careful, because cars don't expect you to be going around in the street. So that's one very important thing. Be very aware of cars. Don't expect them to watch for you, watch for them, okay? Like crosswalks, they already kind of barely will watch for pedestrians. If you're gonna fly across a crosswalk like faster than a person's walking or running, then there's almost no chance a car's going to expect you, and they're just going to run you over. So be very careful at crosswalks. Always check both ways. Make sure no cars are coming, of course. It doesn't matter if it says for the car to yield or the car to stop. There's a very good chance the car is not going to expect that you're going to fly through, and they're going to think it's safe, and a lot of times they'll just fly past the stop or yield sign. So you want to be very careful. All right. The other one is traffic lights. When cars make rights on reds, you don't want to squeeze by cars that are that might be turning right. You always want to just wait behind. All right. Never like go into the bike lane in the right turn if there are cars there, because a lot of times cars won't be watching for you. They won't expect someone to be in the bike lane, and they're just going to make their right turn. All right. So that's another thing to be very careful of. Then with the bike lanes, you also want to be careful. If you're crossing the street at crosswalks too, and cars are on the other side making a right on red, make sure that they notice you before proceeding, because a lot of cars, they'll just check for other cars, and then when they don't see any cars, they're going to go right on red. They don't really watch for bikes coming the other direction or anything like that. So very important, always watch for cars. The other one is like these exits or the driveways. Cars don't watch for people flying down the bike lane at high speeds. So if you want to go high speed and there's like a driveway or entrance to a parking lot or something like that, you actually want to move into the car lane. Make sure there's no cars, of course, but that way the cars that are coming out will be able to watch for you as if you were a car, because they're more likely to watch for cars than bicycles. So these are kind of all important tips. Hopefully these will help some people learn how to ride. Again, start off slow. Don't try and like do things too quick. Usually all the injuries and accidents happen when you get overconfident and you start doing things like beyond what you should be doing. So let's do a U-turn and go back to the park real quick. Okay, so again, you want to work your way up slowly. You don't want to be like, well, this isn't that bad, and then start going like 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour on the wheel when you're just learning. So you want to slowly work your way up to that. Start slow, 5 miles, 10 miles an hour, and then slowly work your way up, 15, 20, 25, 30, like that. All right, you don't want to do any like super sudden like new things that you've never done before. Things like people doing stunts, going off stairs and stuff like that. You want to start with a curb. Like one curb is basically one stair. If you can, find 2 stairs after that. Practice on 2 stairs, 3 stairs, practice on that. There's also different types of stairs. There's like longer, shorter stairs. There's taller, shorter, longer stairs. So you have to keep all those things in mind, and always work your way gradually. Don't just suddenly jump to like crazy new things that you've never done before. You want to slowly work your way up. Alright, so let's turn the camera again. I have a customer calling, so I might head back home and then answer that, or turn the call real quick. But yeah, so all of this is kind of a gradual learning process. You don't want to do anything too fast. Alright, and then the other things are like bike lanes and going on the sidewalk, things like that. If you're going on the sidewalk, you don't want to go too fast. Go the speed as if you're kind of walking or jogging, because if other people are on the sidewalk or go into the sidewalk, maybe they're waiting in their car, things like that, you don't want them to suddenly walk into the sidewalk and you crash into them, because they're not going to be expecting someone to be flying down the sidewalk. All right. Then the other thing is cars. If you're passing cars, parked cars, always anticipate that somebody might be in that parked car and might be just sitting there waiting and eventually coming out of the car. So if you're going next to parked cars, you want to be very careful. If you can, use the car lane or go as far to the left of the bike lane as possible, so that if they open their door, it's not going to slam into you. You're not going to slam into the car door and get knocked down. All right, so there's all these little tips and tricks you learn over time. If you're riding it in wet weather or rain, avoid any like surfaces that could be potentially slippery. So things that are like metal, wet leaves or things like that, you want to avoid those kinds of things. Grass. The other thing, these wheels are extremely difficult to ride in sand. So if you're learning or if you're practicing, do not try and ride it in sand. You're just going to fall over. Even like experienced riders have a really tough time riding in sand. The wheels aren't really, the tires aren't designed for it, and the sand, it creates all these different what do you call, like it's not smooth. It creates all these mountains and hills and things like that, or valleys, that when you ride it will, those little things will pull you all over the place. Another surface you kind of want to avoid is anything that's kind of a little bit squishy or gives. So things like AstroTurf, the fake grass stuff, if it has the rubber in it, you want to be careful with those. Things where like carpet or something where it's somewhat stiff, but it can also like collapse over. There's rubber mats with things where the rubber's kind of sticking up, but then when you roll over it, it bends to the sides, and that can actually pull the wheel over and cause you to lose balance and fall. Then the other one is like when you're riding in bike lanes, people like to use the bike lanes to throw garbage and stuff, so they'll actually put all the garbage here. They'll put like the roadwork signs, everything in the bike lane, so you want to be careful and make sure that nothing is in the bike lane. It's a little bit scary going in the bike lane really fast when there's things like these shadows and stuff, and sometimes there's potholes you don't see, or the road, like sometimes the bike lane will be so narrow that you have to go between like this rain gutter and that, and those, like, sometimes the surface will be very uneven, like the street will be much higher than the rain gutter, and that can actually pull your wheel to one side and cause you to like hit into the curb, things like that. So those kinds of things you want to be very careful for. Okay, cars coming. All right, you always want to be extra careful at blind intersections. So if there's like a driveway or something where it's kind of blocked by bushes or trees or whatever, you want to be very careful with those as well. There's cars coming, so I'm gonna have to move over. But yeah, so there's lots of things to look out for. Most of them you'll learn over time, but you do want to be careful in certain situations where it can be life and death, because if you die, there's no learning from that. You're already dead. So be very careful. Never assume that that because you're following the laws or doing the right thing, that a car or somebody, person or whatever, is not going to end up hitting you or something. So be very careful with that. Always be aware of your surroundings. Make sure that nobody is nearby that might decide to run into the street, or maybe they're going to the trunk of their car or to their door, things like that. You want to be very careful. So hopefully this video helps some of you guys. I might do like a regular video, because this one, most likely the live stream is going to be super blurry or something. But yeah, if this video helps and you guys feel like I should do a better like edited video or something like that, just let me know and I will see about doing that. And again, hopefully this video helps you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.